The night was darker than usual, and the rain had been falling for hours. Streets shimmered with silver reflections of neon lights, and thunder rolled softly across the sky. Evan walked home alone, his jacket soaked through, his boots splashing through puddles. He was tired. Another long day fixing old machines that no one cared about anymore. His small apartment at the edge of the city waited for him, quiet and empty. He turned the last corner when something caught his eye. There, near the steps to his building, a figure lay on the wet ground. At first he thought it was just someone drunk or homeless, but as he came closer, his stomach tightened. It was a woman, barefoot, pale, and shivering under the heavy rain. Her hair clung to her face like black silk. She looked almost lifeless. "Hey, are you okay?" Evan shouted over the storm, kneeling beside her. No answer. He touched her shoulder. It was cold, almost freezing. Her pulse was faint, but there. Without thinking, he lifted her carefully, her body lighter than he expected, and carried her inside. In his apartment, he laid her gently on the couch. Water dripped from her hair onto the floor. Her clothes were torn, dark, unfamiliar fabric that shimmered strangely under the light. He turned on a small heater and fetched a towel. When he came back, she was awake. Her eyes opened slowly, deep red for a second before fading to gray. Evan froze. He thought it was a trick of the light. She blinked again and her lips parted slightly. "Where am I?" she whispered. Her voice was soft but carried a strange tone, like music and static mixed together. "You're in my apartment," Evan said carefully. "You were outside in the rain. You almost froze." She looked around, her gaze landing on the lamp in the corner. Instantly she hissed and turned her head away. "Turn it off, please." Evan frowned but obeyed, switching it off. Okay. It's off. What's wrong with the light?" "It burns," she murmured, curling up like a frightened animal. "Too much light. Hurts." He sighed, not knowing what to say. Maybe she was sick. Maybe she escaped something. "Do you need a doctor?" "I can call someone." "No," she shouted suddenly, her voice echoing louder than it should have. Then she whispered again, trembling, No doctors." Evan stepped back uneasy. There was something not right about her, something that made the air feel colder. Still, he couldn't just throw her out. She looked terrified, lost. "Fine," he said finally. "You can stay until morning." "There's some soup on the stove." She didn't move. Her eyes followed him as he poured soup into a bowl and set it on the table. "I can't eat that," she said quietly. "What? Why not?" She looked down, ashamed. "It won't help me," Evan frowned. "You mean you're allergic?" She shook her head slowly. "No, it's just different. I need—" She stopped herself and closed her mouth. He waited, but she didn't finish. "You need what?" he asked, her voice dropped to a whisper. Life, warm life. Evan didn't understand. He thought she was delirious from the cold. He brought her a blanket and turned away to grab a dry shirt from his closet. Then he felt it, a sudden touch on his arm, cold fingers gripping him tightly. He turned. Her eyes were glowing red again, and before he could react, she pulled him closer. There was a flash of sharp pain in his neck like fire, and then everything went black. He dreamed of stars, thousands of them burning across a red sky. He heard a voice whispering through the void. "Forgive me. I didn't want this." When Evan woke up, the room was quiet except for the sound of rain. His head ached and his neck burned. The woman was sitting beside him, tears running down her pale cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said softly. "I was dying. I needed to feed. Just a little." Evan stared at her. "Feed? What are you talking about?" She looked at the floor. "I'm not from here. Not from your world. I didn't choose this life." He didn't know what to say. His mind spun with questions, fear, disbelief. But one thought stayed clear. She had saved him before in some strange way, and now she was crying beside him. Outside, thunder rolled again. The rain kept falling. Inside, in the dim light of his apartment, a human and an alien vampire sat in silence, two strangers bound by one mistake that would change everything. Morning came slowly, gray light spilling through the half-closed blinds. The rain had stopped, but the city outside looked washed out and silent. Evan woke up on the couch, his head pounding, his throat dry. For a moment, he didn't remember what had happened last night. Then he touched his neck and froze, two small marks, red, tender. He turned sharply. The strange woman was still there, sitting on the floor beside the heater, Her knees were pulled close to her chest, her dark hair covering half her face. She looked smaller now, fragile almost. But those same eyes, those strange, shifting eyes, watched him carefully. "You bit me," Evan said slowly. His voice trembled with confusion more than anger. She didn't deny it. "I had no choice," she whispered. "I was dying. Dying." Evan rubbed his neck, still dizzy. "What are you? Some kind of monster?" She finished for him, her tone sharp but sad. "That's what your kind would call me." He stared at her. She looked human, but there was something different about her presence. Something that made the air hum faintly around her. "You said you're not from here," he muttered. "What does that mean?" She looked up at the window, avoiding his eyes. "I came from the Veil system, far from this world. My people, we need energy to live. Life energy. Your kind calls it blood, but for us it's more than that. It's warmth, emotion, the fire inside." Evan backed away slowly. "So you just take it from people? You feed on them?" Her voice cracked. "Only when I must. Only to survive." Evan paced across the room, trying to think. His mind fought between fear and pity. She looked terrified, not dangerous, not now. Her hands trembled as if she hated herself for what she'd done. He sighed. "You could have killed me." "I didn't," she said quickly, looking at him with sudden intensity. "I stopped. I took only enough to live." Evan sat down again, rubbing his temples. "Why me?" "You were kind," she said simply. "You helped a stranger in the rain." Silence filled the room again. The heater hummed softly. Evan didn't know what to believe. Alien vampire? Energy feeder? It all sounded impossible, but his neck still throbbed and the memory of her eyes glowing red wasn't a dream. Finally he asked, "What's your name?" She hesitated. "Lyra. Lyra," he repeated quietly. "Okay, Lyra, what now? You can't stay here. People will— Please," she interrupted, standing suddenly. "Don't make me leave. The sun burns my skin. I can't go outside in daylight." Her voice was desperate, her fear real. Evan looked toward the blinds, sunlight slipping through the cracks. She backed away from it like it was acid. He felt torn. His logical mind screamed to call the police, the hospital, anyone. But his heart saw something else. She wasn't just a danger. She was lost, alone, and scared. He sighed again. "Fine, you can stay in for now. But no more biting." Lyra gave a small, shaky nod. "I promise." Hours passed in uneasy quiet. Evan worked in his small workshop corner, trying to fix a broken drone while Lyra sat silently on the couch, watching him. Her eyes followed every movement, curious but distant. Finally she asked, "Why do you help machines?" He looked up, surprised. "Because machines don't lie," he said simply. "You fix them, they work. People are harder." Lyra tilted her head, thinking, "On my world, machines feed us. But they never loved us." Evan chuckled softly. "Yeah, they don't do that here either." For the first time she smiled, a faint, almost human smile. But then her expression darkened. "Your world doesn't want my kind. I saw the hunters. They catch us, experiment on us." Evan froze. "Hunters?" She nodded slowly. "Humans in black suits. They track my kind by our energy. That's why I hid in the rain. That's why I found you." Evan looked toward his window again. He'd seen strange drones hovering near his building lately, but he never paid attention. Now a chill ran down his spine. "What happens if they find you here?" he asked quietly. Lyra looked at him with those strange gray eyes. "Then you'll die too." A long silence followed. Outside, thunder rumbled again, even though the storm had passed. Evan felt the weight of something bigger, something far beyond his simple life. He glanced at her again. "You're trouble, you know that?" Lyra looked down. "Then why did you save me?" He didn't answer. He didn't know. Maybe because he was lonely. Maybe because something in her eyes reminded him of himself. Lost, tired, just trying to survive in a world that didn't care. That night, as he lay in bed, he could feel her presence even from across the room. He didn't trust her, not fully, but he also couldn't turn her away. And deep down he knew, whatever had started with that bite was only the beginning. 3 days passed since the night of the bite. Evan's small apartment no longer felt like his own. The air was different now, quieter, heavier, and filled with something unseen. Every time he turned around, Lyra was there, silent as a shadow. She slept most of the day, curling up on the couch beneath a blanket, the blinds tightly closed. When the sunlight tried to sneak in through the cracks, she flinched and hissed softly, pulling the fabric tighter around her. At night, she moved, quiet, restless, and strange. Sometimes Evan woke to the sound of her pacing, whispering in a language that didn't belong to Earth. Evan tried to keep his routine the same. Work, eat, fix machines. Pretend life was normal. But it wasn't. Not anymore. He avoided looking at the couch too often, afraid she might disappear, or worse, still be there, staring with those unblinking gray eyes that sometimes flashed red when the lights dimmed. On the fourth night, Evan found her standing by the window watching the rain fall again. "You shouldn't stand there," he said quietly. "Someone might see you." "No one looks up anymore," she said, her voice calm. "Your world has forgotten the sky," he frowned. "You talk like you've been here a long time." "Too long," she whispered. "Long enough to see what your people do to the weak." Her words hung in the air like smoke. Evan didn't argue. He knew she wasn't wrong. Humans weren't kind to things they didn't understand. He sat down at his workbench and picked up a broken drone. "You could help me fix these, you know. Keep busy." Lyra tilted her head. "Machines obey," she said. "I never learned to," he smirked. "Figures." For a moment, a soft laugh escaped her, a quiet sound, almost human. It made him forget what she was, just for a heartbeat. But that peace didn't last long. Later that night, when Evan went to get some water, he noticed something strange on the table. His metal wrench bent in half like clay. He picked it up, confused. "What the?" Lyra stood behind him, her face pale and unreadable. "I was dreaming," she said softly. "Sometimes I forget my strength." Evan stared at the ruined wrench. "You crushed steel. In your sleep?" She looked away. "That's why I stay close." To control it, he wanted to ask more, but her voice trembled. She wasn't threatening him, she was warning him. Whatever she was holding back, it wasn't small. The next morning, a knock rattled the door. 3 sharp taps. Evan froze. Lyra vanished from sight, literally. One blink and she was gone. The air shimmered faintly and he realized she was still there, invisible somehow. "Evan Grayson?" a voice called. "Building inspection." Evan opened the door halfway. 2 men stood there, both wearing black coats despite the warm weather. Their eyes scanned the apartment behind him too quickly, too purposefully. "Yeah," Evan said carefully. "What's this about?" "Routine check," one replied. "There have been reports of unusual power surges in this area." Evan forced a small laugh. "Power surges? You've got the wrong place. My apartment barely powers a toaster." The taller agent smiled tightly. "If you notice anything strange, Mr. Grayson, you can call this number." He handed Evan a metallic card with a holographic logo. Bureau of Extraterrestrial Containment. The name made Evan's stomach twist. "Sure," he said, pretending to sound bored. "I'll call if any aliens drop by." They nodded politely, but their eyes lingered longer than they should have before they left. When the door shut, Evan turned slowly. Lyra appeared again behind him, breathing fast. "They're here," she said. "They found my signal." Evan held up the card. "Who are they?" "They hunt my kind," she whispered. "They take us apart. Study us, some of us. Don't survive." He stared at her, torn between anger and fear. "You brought them to me." Her expression broke. "I didn't mean to. When I bit you, I left a mark, an energy trace. They can sense it now through you." Evan's chest tightened. "So they're not just after you. They're after me too." Lyra nodded slowly. "Yes, silence." Only the hum of the heater filled the room. Finally, Evan spoke. "Then we hide. We stay quiet. No light, no noise." Lyra looked at him in surprise. "You would protect me?" "Even after what I did." He met her gaze. "You needed help. That's all I know. And I'm not letting some black suit freaks drag anyone out of here." For the first time, Lyra looked at him with something close to respect, maybe even trust. As night fell again, the two of them sat in the dim light of a single candle. Outside, strange drones floated in the distance, scanning the city with red beams. Evan closed the blinds tighter. Lyra's reflection flickered faintly in the glass, part woman, part shadow. The apartment felt smaller than ever, filled with secrets and fear. Yet somewhere deep inside, Evan realized he wasn't afraid of her anymore. He was afraid of losing her. The days that followed were heavy with tension. Evan barely slept, and when he did, dreams haunted him. Cold red skies, machines screaming, and Lyra's voice whispering his name in the dark. Every sound in the hallway made his heart jump. Every shadow near the window felt like an eye. Lyra sensed it too. She stayed silent most of the time, curled up on the couch like a ghost. Sometimes her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, scanning the walls as if she could see through them. The city outside buzzed like normal, but for them the world had shrunk to a single apartment where fear and trust coexisted. Evan tried to distract himself with his repairs, but that morning when he switched on his old radio for some background noise, it didn't play music. Instead, static filled the room, then a strange voice emerged through the interference. Entity detected. Code Sigma 13. Human host signature confirmed. Prepare for containment. The message repeated twice before cutting off. Evan froze. He turned to Lyra. She was already standing, her face pale, her body trembling slightly. They found us, she whispered. Evan turned off the radio quickly, his hands shaking. How? I unplugged everything last night. No signal, no network, nothing. It's not your devices, she said quietly. It's you, he frowned. Me? Lyra nodded. When I bit you, I left an imprint of my life force. It's how my kind connects, how we sense one another. But the humans, they've learned to detect it. Your body is now a beacon. Evan's stomach dropped. So what, you're saying I'm a walking tracker? Yes, she said softly. They'll come for both of us now. He slammed his hands on the table. Great, fantastic. I help a stranger get bitten and now the government's hunting me like some alien pet project. Lyra didn't flinch. She simply looked at him with sad eyes. You can still give me up. Tell them I forced you. They'll let you live. Evan looked at her, disbelief flashing across his face. You think I'm that kind of person? I think you're human, she replied. Humans survive first, question later. He grabbed his jacket, pacing across the room. You don't know me, Lyra. I've been surviving all my life, just not like this. I'm not selling you out. For a long moment, silence filled the room except for the faint hum of the heater. Then Lyra said something he didn't expect. My people once trusted humans too. Evan turned. What do you mean? Lyra walked toward the window but didn't look out. When your ships first reached the Veil system, they came as explorers. They offered peace, but soon they started capturing us, studying how we lived off energy, how we could heal, how we could change matter itself. We became experiments. Her voice cracked, and for the first time Evan saw something break inside her, pain older than any human war. I escaped, she continued softly, but I left others behind. That's why they're hunting me. I wasn't supposed to survive. Evan felt a heavy lump in his chest. He didn't know what to say, so he said the only thing that came to mind. You're safe here, she smiled weakly. You keep saying that, human. But safety doesn't exist for monsters like me. Just then, the apartment lights flickered. A low hum vibrated through the walls, followed by a short electronic buzz. Evan's TV turned on by itself, the screen flashing a red symbol, 3 triangles forming a circle. Containment team inbound, a robotic voice said. All civilians clear the area. Lyra grabbed his arm. They're already here. Evan rushed to the window and peeked through a crack. Down below, 3 black hovercrafts hovered silently over the street. Figures in armored suits fanned out across the building entrance, their visors glowing blue. Get your things, he said quickly. We have to go. Lyra shook her head. No. If I leave, they'll track my energy and destroy everything around us. They always do. Then what's the plan? Her eyes turned red again, bright and fierce. We cut the signal. Evan didn't understand at first, but then she placed her cold hand on his chest. A jolt of energy surged through him like ice and fire at once. He gasped. Lyra, what are you? I'm removing the link, she said. It will hurt, and it did. The room blurred as light poured out of him, golden threads unraveling from his skin. Evan screamed, falling to his knees. But through the pain, he saw her face, calm, determined, and full of something strange, compassion. Then it stopped. The air went still. The hum in the walls faded. Evan looked up, shaking. Did it work? Lyra nodded weakly, collapsing beside him. They can't track you anymore, but they'll still find me. He grabbed her hand. Then they'll have to go through me first. Outside boots echoed in the hallway. The hunters had arrived. Evan stood jaw tight, adrenaline replacing fear. Lyra looked at him with surprise, almost admiration. You're insane, she whispered. Maybe, he said, but I'm human. We don't run from the people we care about. The door handle started to turn. Evan grabbed his wrench, his only weapon, and took a step forward. Whatever came next, he wasn't backing down. The hallway outside echoed with boots and metal. The hunters had arrived. Evan's heartbeat pounded in his ears like a drum. He stood by the door, wrench in hand, as if that small piece of metal could hold back soldiers armed with energy rifles. Lyra stood behind him, her breath shallow, her skin pale. The mark on her wrist pulsed faintly with red light, the last trace of her alien energy trying to recover after cutting their bond. She looked weaker than before, but her eyes still glowed faintly. "They'll break through in seconds," she said quietly. "Then we don't give them the chance," Evan muttered. He looked toward the back window. "There's a fire escape. We can—" Before he could finish, the front door exploded inward. A flash grenade rolled across the floor. Lyra grabbed him and pulled him down just before it went off. A white light filled the room, followed by a piercing sound that made Evan's vision spin. When it cleared, figures in black armor were already inside. "Target acquired," one said through a voice filter. "Do not let the entity escape." Evan's fear turned to anger. He swung the wrench at the nearest soldier, hitting the side of the helmet with a loud crack. The man stumbled back, surprised that a civilian even fought back. Another soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Lyra moved. She was fast. Too fast for human eyes to follow. She caught the man's arm, twisted it, and the weapon discharged into the ceiling. Sparks showered down as she shoved him into the wall. Her eyes glowed crimson now, bright as fire. "Stay down," she shouted at Evan, her voice echoing unnaturally. Evan didn't listen. He grabbed the fallen soldier's weapon and aimed clumsily at another one. "Back off," he yelled. The shot missed, but it was enough. The hunters took cover behind the kitchen counter, shouting into their comms. Lyra looked at Evan and almost smiled. "You humans never stop fighting. You bit me," he said, panting. "You don't get to tell me to hide." The air in the room began to shimmer. Lyra's energy radiated stronger now, dark red and alive. The hunters aimed again, shouting warnings. "Containment breach imminent," one yelled. Lyra raised her hands. The lights flickered, then exploded in a shower of sparks. A wave of invisible force threw the soldiers back like rag dolls. The walls shook, the windows shattered, and the smell of ozone filled the air. When the dust settled, 3 soldiers were unconscious. The rest fled into the hallway, calling for backup. Lyra sank to her knees, trembling. "I can't hold it much longer." Evan ran to her side. "Hey, stay with me." She looked at him with eyes full of pain. "You should have let me go." "Not happening," he said firmly. He helped her up and guided her to the back window. Smoke rose from the destroyed kitchen. "We need to move now." She hesitated. "If I feed, I can regain strength. But I swore not to harm you again." He stared at her. "What happens if you don't feed?" "I fade," she whispered. "My body burns itself from the inside out." Evan clenched his jaw. "Then take what you need." Lyra looked shocked. "Evan, do it, just—" "Don't kill me." Her eyes filled with emotion, fear, guilt, maybe something like affection. She stepped closer, her hand trembling as she touched his neck again. This time the bite was gentle, controlled. There was no pain, only warmth. Evan felt his heartbeat slow, his body light. His mind filled with strange images, alien skies, glowing cities, creatures made of light. Lyra's memories, her loneliness, her escape, the experiments, the endless running. When she pulled away, her eyes had lost the red glow. She looked alive again, color returning to her face. "I didn't take much," she said softly. "Enough to live, not enough to harm." Evan leaned against the wall, dizzy but breathing. "Good," he murmured, "because I'm not done yelling at you yet." A faint laugh escaped her lips, weak but real. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Reinforcements were coming. Evan peered out the broken window and saw drones circling above. "They'll seal off the whole block soon," Lyra nodded. "Then we go underground. The tunnel's beneath the city, they can't track us there." "How do you know about that?" he asked. Her voice grew quiet. "Because I used to hide there. Before I met you." Evan didn't ask more. He just grabbed his jacket and a flashlight. "Let's move." As they climbed out the window and disappeared into the cold night, Lyra looked back once at the ruined apartment. "You lost your home because of me," she said. Evan shook his head. "A home's just walls. You? You're the reason I'm still fighting. For the first time, she smiled without sadness. You're a strange human, Evan Grayson. Yeah, he said with a grin. I get that a lot. They vanished into the shadows. Side by side, one human, one alien vampire bound by blood and trust, running from the world that refused to understand them both. The tunnels beneath the city were cold and endless, their air heavy with dust and silence. Evan's flashlight flickered weakly as he and Lyra made their way deeper underground. Water dripped from cracked pipes above, echoing like whispers in the dark. They had been walking for hours. Lyra's steps had grown slower, her face pale again. Her energy was fading fast after the battle. Evan could see the effort it took her just to stay upright. We can stop for a minute, he said, guiding her toward a dry wall. She shook her head weakly. If we stop, they'll find us. They never stop hunting. You're bleeding light again, Evan murmured, pointing to the faint glow pulsing under her skin. Lyra pressed her hand over it, grimacing. That's not blood. It's my energy leaking. I'm running out. Evan knelt beside her, his voice firm. Then we find a way to fight back, together. Her eyes softened. You'd stand against your own kind for me? He gave a small smile. You're not my enemy, Lyra, they are. For a moment, neither spoke. The sound of distant engines rumbled through the tunnel, hovercrafts searching above ground. The hunters were closing in again. Suddenly, Lyra's head lifted. Her pupils narrowed, glowing faintly red. They've found the tunnel entrance, Evan swore under his breath. Then this is it. No more running. He looked around and spotted an old control chamber ahead, rusted doors, forgotten machinery, and scattered tools. They slipped inside and barricaded the door with metal scraps. Lyra leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. You should go, Evan. You can still escape through the maintenance vent. He shook his head. Not leaving you. We end this together. Her lips curved into a faint smile. You're stubborn. Like the old stars, burning even when they know they'll die. Outside, the tunnel shook. The door trembled under the weight of heavy boots. Voices barked orders. Metal clanged. Evan looked around, searching for anything they could use. Can you still, do that energy thing? Lyra nodded faintly. But if I use it again, I'll burn myself out completely. Then we make it count, he said. She stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. If I give you part of my power, you can survive what's coming. But it will change you. Change me how? She looked at him with sorrow in her eyes. You'll never be the same human again. Evan didn't hesitate. Do it! Lyra's eyes glowed bright red as she pressed her palm to his heart. A surge of warmth and light spread through his body. His vision blurred, memories, stars, and alien symbols flashing before him. The sound of his heartbeat merged with hers, two rhythms becoming one. Then it was over. He gasped for air, his eyes burning faintly with the same red glow as hers. What did you... I gave you part of my energy, she said softly. Now we're linked again. You'll feel what I feel. The door exploded open. The hunters stormed in, weapons raised. Step away from the entity, one shouted. Evan moved first. He swung his arm forward and a wave of energy burst out. Red light that cracked through the air and threw the soldiers backward. He stared at his hand in shock. Lyra smiled weakly. See? You're changing already. The hunters regrouped, firing plasma bolts that lit up the dark tunnel. Evan ducked behind a console while Lyra raised her hands, creating a barrier of shimmering red light. It flickered with each hit, her strength draining fast. They won't stop, Evan shouted. Then neither will we, Lyra whispered. Summoning the last of her power, she reached for Evan's hand. Together, he nodded. Their joined energy flared, growing brighter and louder until the entire chamber trembled. The red light erupted outward like a storm, blinding everything in its path. The hunters screamed as their suits overloaded, their visors cracking. When the light faded, silence returned. Smoke filled the air. The tunnel walls were scorched, the hunters gone. Only Evan and Lyra remained, barely standing. Lyra stumbled, her body fading like a dying ember. Evan caught her before she fell. Hey, stay with me, he said desperately. She smiled faintly, her voice weak but calm. It's all right. I gave you what you need to survive. No, Evan whispered. You're not leaving me. Lyra touched his cheek. You're more than human now. You'll carry my light. That's enough. Her body shimmered, breaking into thousands of glowing particles. They swirled around him warm and soft before fading into his skin. Evan fell to his knees, breath shaking. The tunnels were silent again, but deep inside him, He could still feel her heartbeat echoing faintly. He looked toward the broken door, where faint sunlight leaked through the cracks. The city above was waking up, unaware of what had happened beneath its feet. Evan stood slowly. The hunters were gone. Lyra was gone, but her light remained, and somewhere deep in his soul a voice whispered gently, "Live, Evan. Live for both of us." He took one last look at the ruins of the battle, then walked toward the surface carrying the spark of an alien heart inside his human chest. The city above was calm again. The rain had stopped days ago, replaced by golden morning light that spilled between the tall buildings. Life went on, traffic, chatter, advertisements floating in the air. No one knowing that beneath the streets, a war had been fought in silence. Evan sat in his rebuilt apartment, staring at the couch. The same couch where it all began, the same one where Lyra had first opened her strange gray eyes. Now it was empty. He had fixed the broken lamp, patched the bullet holes in the wall, and replaced the shattered window, but the room still felt haunted by her presence. Sometimes at night, he could swear he heard her voice, soft, distant, humming the alien tune she used to sing when she thought he was asleep. He looked at his hand. The faint red glow still shimmered beneath his skin, pulsing gently like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. Lyra's energy lived in him now, a reminder, a curse, a promise. The news played on the hollow screen across the room. Breaking. Bureau of Extraterrestrial Containment denies allegations of underground battle in Sector 12. Citizens urged to remain calm. Evan smirked. Yeah, calm, sure. He turned the screen off and leaned back. He hadn't gone back to work. He couldn't. Machines and tools felt meaningless now. Ever since Lyra's light merged with him, the world felt different, sharper, alive, like he could sense things that weren't supposed to exist. When he closed his eyes, he saw energy, threads connecting people, pulsing through walls, humming in wires. He could feel emotions like temperature, hear thoughts like faint echoes. At first, it terrified him. Then slowly, it began to feel like her. He had promised to live for both of them. One night, unable to sleep, Evan found himself talking to the empty room. "You're still here, aren't you, Lyra?" The air shimmered faintly and a whisper answered inside his mind. "Always." He froze. "You're alive?" "Not alive. Not gone either. My essence stayed with you. You're the bridge now. Human and Veilborn, one heart in two worlds." Evan's chest tightened. "I don't even know what that means. It means you're not alone anymore." He laughed softly, shaking his head. "You always show up when I'm about to lose it. That's what you humans call love, isn't it?" He went quiet. Maybe. Or maybe it's just two broken people trying to make sense of what's left. The connection faded, but her warmth lingered inside him. Days turned into weeks. Evan started walking the streets again, blending into crowds, pretending to be normal. But normal was gone. The hunters still operated in the shadows, tracking down anything alien. He could sense them sometimes, their energy sharp and cold. One evening, as he walked past the city's edge, he saw something strange, a faint, pulsing red mark on the wall of an abandoned building. The same symbol from the Bureau's drones, but beside it someone had written in alien script, curves of glowing silver that only he could read. "The Veil remembers." Evan's breath caught. Lyra. The glow faded as he touched it, but it left behind a spark of hope. Maybe she wasn't completely gone. Maybe others like her still lived, hiding like ghosts, waiting for a reason to rise again. He made his way home under the pale city lights. When he entered his apartment, the familiar quiet greeted him. He placed his tools on the counter and sat down on the couch, the same spot Lyra had once slept on. He spoke softly into the air. "If you can hear me, wherever you are, I'm still keeping my promise." The lamp beside him flickered once, then steadied, glowing with a faint red hue. Evan smiled. "Yeah, I knew you'd say that." He leaned back, staring at the stars through the cracked window. Somewhere out there, maybe beyond the veil, she was watching too. And deep inside his chest, her heartbeat echoed with his own, perfectly in sync. The world would never understand what happened, how a human and an alien vampire changed each other. But Evan didn't need them to. He had her light, her voice, her memory, and on nights when the rain fell again, he'd sit on that same couch, close his eyes, and whisper into the quiet, "Good night, Lyra." A soft whisper always answered back, "Good night, human." Outside, the city lights flickered like stars reflected on wet streets. Somewhere in the distance, new stories were beginning, of humans and aliens, of fear and trust, of love that refused to die. And in one small apartment, a mechanic who once fixed broken machines now carried something far greater, a broken universe slowly learning how to heal.